Woohoo. Okay, questions on that? So here's a secret sauce. On your summative assessments, and like even when you guys are preparing for college and you take your SAT, if you take your SAT and you're asked to do something with a polynomial, you're probably not going to be asked to write your answer in descending order. That is just something you need to know that needs to be done. So on your summative assessments, the very last thing you're going to do is double check that you have written your final answer in what order? Descending order. Okay, beautiful. Okay. So that is that very first lesson, which I know you guys have all been past that. So now let's move to 9.2. Adding and subtracting polynomials. All right. So here's the expectation on this one. Now we're going to start crunching numbers and combining like terms. So you want to be writing these down on your scratch paper in your notes. Okay, so 9.2.2. This one is all about adding and subtracting polynomials. So we're first going to start with sum, which means adding. I'm not going to use purple because then I would be taking Malachi's number color. So I'm going to use blue. All right, so find the sum here. Okay, so what we want to do whenever we are finding the sum of two polynomials, we're going to combine like terms. And notice we have an x squared term. And over here, we also have an x squared term. So they are like terms. We are able to combine them. So if I have 3x squareds and over here I have 4x squareds, how many x squareds do we have altogether? Seven x squareds, beautiful. Beautiful, plus, all right. Let's look at our other ones. And so I like to color code these. It just helps my brain. So I have a negative 2x, and then over here I have a 3x. What's negative? I have negative 2x's, and here I'm adding 3x's to it. So how many x's do I have total? Good, one, Malachi says, 1x, good. Beautiful, and I'll go to dark green. Here we have a +1, plus a 2. So our constants are also like terms. Nice. +3. Good. There's our final answer for that problem. Do a spot check. Are we in descending order? Do we have highest exponent to lowest? Yay or nay? Do I need to change the order? We are done. That is in descending order. Good. So go ahead and do number 2 on the paper, on your own paper. And then when you have the answer to 2, you can put it in the private chat or you can write it on the computer. Nice. Okay, Caden and Malachi, good, are agreeing. Malachi, check your first term that you have your exponent on there. There you go, good. Okay, so I'm going to show you how helpful these answer keys are when you are ready to be checking your answers. It's hard to see everything. The answer keys actually show you step by step. So look at number 2 here. So it changes the order. So we have a 5x squared plus an 8x squared. It puts them next to each other here. So you know they're like terms. There's your x terms next to each other. So from your answer keys, you're actually able to see how the final answer came to be. So they're very powerful documents. So use those answer keys. Okay. What questions do we have for adding? We're okay? Okay. Here we go. Whenever you have subtraction, that's when things get a little bit more complicated because there's a step you have to do before you can start combining like terms. So let's look at subtraction. So really important that you're paying attention to the sign here. Okay, let's talk about 6. What are we subtracting? Yell at me when you're out of class, okay. On number 6, tell me what's being subtracted here. You can type it in the chat or you can yell it at me. One thing that's being subtracted is the 2x squared. Do we agree with that? Okay. 2x squared is being subtracted. There's something else that is being subtracted. Notice this negative applies to this entire set of parentheses. What's the other term in that set of parentheses? That plus 2. Good. So notice we're subtracting each of these terms. If we're subtracting each of those terms, that means this negative needs to apply to each of these terms. So you can show your work a couple different ways. I like the swoop. I'm a fan of a swoop, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I use a distribution swoop like this. I'm going to distribute that negative sign. You can think of it as a -1. You're going to distribute it to each of the pieces inside the parentheses. And so let's rewrite what we have after we distribute. So the second half there, we're going to have a -2x squared. And -1 times a +2 is a -2. So notice it changes the sign of each of those terms inside that second set of parentheses. Then you can bring down your first terms, the terms in that first set of parentheses. Notice I didn't change my signs there because there was no negative out in front of them. Okay. Now we combine like terms. So what are our like terms? Now you don't have to worry about this negative anymore. You've already applied it and rewritten. So we have a 3x squared and we have a -2x squared. So when we combine those, what are we going to have? You have 3 of something and you have -2 of something. Awesome, Caden. You have 1x squared. Okay. Is it helpful when I circle the like terms in like colors, similar colors? So a -9x. Uh-oh. There's no other x term. What are we going to do? So how many x's do we have then? Good. -9 x's. All right. And then lastly, you have your constants. 4, +4, and -2. What's 4 minus 2? Beautiful. Good teamwork there, guys. Beautiful. Spot check. What do we have to check before we put a box around it? Descending order. Is it in descending order? Highest exponents to lowest. Good. So then you wrap that puppy in a box. You are done. Good. All right. Let's do number 7 together, the first step of it. Actually, no, let's not do 7. Let's look at one that's really hard. Let's look at number 9. So number 9, how many terms are we going to change the sign on first before we drop those parentheses? It's going to be 1, 2, 3. So make sure you have that original problem written down on your paper first before you start doing work on it. So all I want you to do now, write the original problem down, distribute that negative to all the terms in the second set of parentheses, and now rewrite what you have. We're not combining like terms yet. When you have yours, spot check against mine. 12x squared plus 2x plus 3x squared minus 5x minus 7. Basically, each of these signs has switched because we've multiplied it by a -1 because we're subtracting each of them. Okay, once you're good there, last step, combine like terms. Giddy up. Go ahead and do that and write your final answer either in the chat or on the screen. Nice, Caden and Malachi, looks good. And you guys agree. Good. All right. If these are the first 2 problems you have done with subtracting polynomials, I'm sorry, my friends, that is not enough for you to be ready to take your quiz. So what you are going to do is do the rest of these on the worksheet. Yes? Yes. And then you're going to check your answers. Yes? Yes.